The wind cut through her thin jacket like a knife. Lily pulled the collar tighter around her neck, but it didn't help much. The jacket was old, bought from a thrift store 3 years ago, and the zipper was broken. She'd safety pinned it shut, but the cold December air still found its way inside. It was almost midnight. Her feet ached from standing for 8 hours straight at the diner. Before that, she'd stocked shelves at the grocery store for 4 hours. Tomorrow, she'd wake up at 6 to clean offices before school. This was her life now. 17 years old, and she felt like she was 50. The streetlights flickered as she walked through the nice part of town. She always took this route home because it was safer, even though it was longer. The houses here were huge, with perfectly trimmed lawns and expensive cars in the driveways. Christmas lights twinkled on every porch. It was a different world from her cramped apartment across town. Her grandmother was waiting for her at home. Grandma Rosa had raised her after the accident 2 years ago. Mom and Dad were gone in an instant, taken by a drunk driver on a rainy Tuesday night. The medical bills from their final days in the hospital had eaten through everything. The life insurance barely covered the funeral costs. The small house they'd lived in had to be sold to pay off debts. Now it was just her and Grandma Rosa in a tiny one-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and a heater that only worked half the time. Lily slept on the couch. She didn't mind. At least they had a roof over their heads. Her vision blurred for a second. When was the last time she'd eaten? There'd been some crackers at lunch around 2 o'clock. That was 10 hours ago. She'd given her dinner money to Grandma Rosa for her medicine. The pharmacy had raised the prices again, and insurance only covered part of it. Lily blinked hard, trying to focus. Just 10 more blocks. Then she could collapse on that lumpy couch and sleep for 5 hours before starting all over again. The sidewalk seemed to tilt. She stumbled, caught herself against a fence. Her heart was racing. Everything felt wrong. Her legs turned to rubber beneath her. The last thing she remembered was the cold concrete rushing up to meet her face, and then nothing. She didn't see the car pull over. Didn't hear the door slam or the quick footsteps running toward her. Didn't feel the warm hands checking her pulse or the expensive coat being draped over her shivering body. Catherine Bennett had been driving home from a charity dinner. She'd almost missed the girl lying on the sidewalk. At first she thought it might be a pile of old clothes, but then she saw the tennis shoes, the thin legs, the pale hands stretched out on the icy pavement. She was out of her car in seconds, her heart pounding. The girl was barely conscious, mumbling something incoherent. Her skin was ice cold. Catherine pulled off her cashmere coat and wrapped it around the girl's thin frame. "Can you hear me?" Catherine asked, her voice steady despite the panic rising in her chest. "Honey, can you open your eyes?" The girl's eyelids fluttered. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Catherine grabbed her phone and dialed 911. Her hands shook as she gave the address. "Please hurry," she said. "I think she's hypothermic. She's not responding properly." She stayed on the line with the dispatcher while cradling the girl's head in her lap. Snow began to fall, soft white flakes landing on the girl's dark hair. Catherine brushed them away gently. "The ambulance is 5 minutes out," the dispatcher said. "Stay with her. Keep her warm. Keep talking to her." "I'm here," Catherine said softly to the girl. "Help is coming. You're going to be okay. Stay with me now. What's your name?" "Can you tell me your name?" The girl's lips moved again. This time Catherine heard it. "Lily," she whispered. "Lily, that's a beautiful name." "I'm Catherine. The ambulance is almost here, Lily. Just hang on." Lily's eyes opened slightly. They were brown, deep, and dark like coffee, confused, scared. "My grandma?" Lily managed to say. "She'll worry. We'll call her," Catherine promised. "As soon as we get you to the hospital. Don't worry about that now." The ambulance arrived with flashing lights and 2 paramedics who moved with practiced efficiency. They checked Lily's vitals, asked Catherine questions about how she'd found her. Catherine rode with them to the hospital, still holding her coat around Lily's shoulders. At the emergency room, Catherine stayed in the waiting area. She told herself she'd just wait until someone came for the girl. Make sure she was okay, then she could leave. But 2 hours later, no one had arrived. Catherine asked the nurse about Lily's condition. "She's stable now," the nurse said. "Severe exhaustion, dehydration, and early stages of hypothermia. She's lucky you found her when you did. Another hour out there." The nurse shook her head. "Is anyone with her?" "No. She gave us a number for her grandmother, but the woman can't leave their apartment. She's got mobility issues and no way to get here." The girl keeps trying to leave. Says she needs to get home to take care of her grandmother. Something twisted in Catherine's chest. She made a decision that surprised even herself. Can I see her? The nurse hesitated, then nodded. Room 7, but only for a few minutes. Lily was sitting up in the hospital bed, looking like she was about to bolt. She'd pulled out her IV once already, the nurse mentioned. Her eyes widened when Catherine walked in. You stayed, Lily said, her voice hoarse. I wanted to make sure you were okay. Catherine pulled up a chair. The doctors say you need to rest. I need to go home. My grandma needs her medicine in the morning and I have to work at 6. Lily. Catherine's voice was gentle but firm. You collapsed on the street. You could have died out there. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. She looked away, jaw clenched. I know, I can't afford to miss work. We barely have enough money as it is. The words came tumbling out then. About her parents. The accident. The bills. The 3 jobs. Her grandmother's medications. The apartment with the broken heater. Lily hadn't meant to say any of it. She'd held it all inside for 2 years, telling no one, carrying it all alone. Catherine listened without interrupting. Her throat felt tight. The girl was 17. She should be thinking about prom and college applications, not working herself to death to keep a roof over her head. When Lily finished, she wiped her eyes roughly with the back of her hand. I'm sorry. I don't know why I told you all that. Don't apologize. Catherine reached out and squeezed Lily's hand. You've been incredibly strong, but you can't keep going like this. You'll end up dead. And then what happens to your grandmother? Lily's face crumpled. I don't know what else to do. Catherine stood up. Get some rest. I'm going to take care of a few things. I'll be back in the morning. Wait. Lily started to protest, but Catherine was already gone. Catherine didn't go home that night. She made phone calls. She pulled strings. She talked to social workers and made arrangements that she'd never made for anyone before. She'd lost her own daughter 3 years ago. Melissa had been 25, bright and beautiful, full of plans and dreams. Then cancer had taken her in 6 brutal months. The house had felt empty ever since. The money Catherine had made from her business felt meaningless without anyone to share it with. But something about Lily reminded her of Melissa. The same determination, the same stubborn pride, the same good heart that put everyone else first. Maybe this was the universe giving her a second chance. A chance to help someone who truly needed it. A chance to matter again. As the sun rose over the city, Catherine made one more phone call to her lawyer. Then she headed back to the hospital, carrying coffee and breakfast from the cafe down the street. Lily was awake, staring at the ceiling. She looked over when Catherine entered. I thought you'd left, Lily said quietly. Catherine smiled. I told you I'd be back. Now we need to talk about your situation. I have a proposition for you, and I don't want you to answer right away. I want you to think about it carefully. Lily sat up straighter, looking wary. What kind of proposition? Catherine set the coffee and food on the rolling table. Eat first, then we'll talk. And as Lily ate her first real meal in days, Catherine prepared to make an offer that would change both their lives forever. She didn't know it yet, but this wasn't just about helping a girl in need. This was the beginning of a miracle that neither of them could have possibly imagined. Catherine visited the hospital every single day for a week. She brought soup from the expensive place downtown. She brought books and magazines. She brought fresh flowers that made the sterile room smell like spring. Most importantly, she brought food for Grandma Rosa, having it delivered to their apartment so the old woman wouldn't worry or go hungry. Lily didn't know what to make of it. Nobody did things like this. Nobody helped strangers without wanting something in return. She kept waiting for the catch, for Catherine to reveal what she really wanted, but it never came. On the 4th day, Catherine brought someone with her, a kind-faced woman in a neat blazer who introduced herself as Patricia, a social worker. Lily's stomach dropped. This was it. They were going to take her away from Grandma Rosa, put her in foster care. She'd heard horror stories from kids at school. Please, Lily said, her voice shaking. Don't separate us. My grandma needs me. I can take care of her. I've been doing fine. Lily, honey, nobody's separating you from your grandmother, Patricia said gently. Catherine asked me here to help arrange some services for your grandmother. Medical care, home health assistance, things like that. If you're open to it. Lily looked between them, confused. I can't afford that. Catherine pulled her chair closer to the bed. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I'd like to help. Not as charity, but as, let's call it an investment in your future. I don't understand. Catherine took a breath. My daughter died 3 years ago. Her name was Melissa. She was brilliant, kind, and she wanted to be a doctor more than anything. She got sick before she could finish medical school. Catherine's voice caught slightly. I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. It just sits there, not doing any good for anyone. Melissa would have hated that. Lily stayed quiet, listening. I've learned a lot about you this past week. The nurses told me you study in the cafeteria between shifts. You've got a 4.0 GPA despite working 3 jobs. You want to be a doctor too. That's never going to happen, Lily said bitterly. Even with scholarships, I couldn't afford it. And my grandma, what if you could? Catherine interrupted. What if someone took care of your grandmother's medical expenses? What if you could quit those jobs and focus on school? What if you could actually have a shot at medical school? Lily stared at her. Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me. I know enough. You're 17 and you've been keeping yourself and your grandmother alive through sheer willpower. That takes incredible strength. Melissa would have liked you. Catherine smiled sadly. I'm not offering this because I feel sorry for you. I'm offering this because you deserve a chance. Because my daughter never got to fulfill her dreams and maybe I can help someone else fulfill theirs. I can't accept that, Lily whispered. It's too much. Then think of it this way. One day when you're a doctor, you'll help people who can't afford medical care. You'll pay it forward. That's all I ask. Patricia pulled out some papers. I've already arranged for your grandmother to see a specialist about her heart condition. The appointment is next Tuesday. Catherine is willing to cover all medical expenses, including medications. Lily felt tears streaming down her face. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, Catherine said. Take your time. But Lily, you can't keep going the way you were. You were dying on that sidewalk. Your body was shutting down. Another hour and you wouldn't be here. That night after Catherine left, Lily called her grandmother. She told her everything, her voice shaking. Mika, Grandma Rosa said softly. In my whole life, I've learned that sometimes angels show up in expensive cars. Your mama, may she rest in peace, she would want you to have this chance. She worked so hard to give you a better life. Don't throw that away because of pride. But what if she changes her mind? What if? Then we'll deal with it. But right now, an angel is offering you wings. Take them. The next morning when Catherine arrived, Lily was sitting up in bed, her hands folded in her lap. I want to accept, Lily said, but I have conditions. Catherine raised an eyebrow, impressed. Go on. I want everything in writing. I want to know exactly what you're paying for and what you expect from me. I'll work hard, I promise. I'll get perfect grades. I'll make you proud. But I need to know this is real, that it's not going to disappear. Fair enough. Catherine pulled out her phone. I'll have my lawyer draw up an agreement. Anything else? I want to meet you. Like really meet you. Have dinner at your house. See where you live. I need to know who you are, Catherine smiled. I'd like that. How about this Saturday? 3 days later, Lily was discharged from the hospital. Catherine picked her up personally and drove her home to the tiny apartment. When they pulled up to the building with its cracked steps and graffiti-covered walls, Catherine didn't flinch. She helped Lily upstairs and met Grandma Rosa for the first time. The old woman was smaller than Catherine expected, with silver hair pulled back in a bun and kind eyes that held decades of wisdom and hardship. She hugged Catherine like they were old friends. Thank you for saving my granddaughter, Rosa said, her voice thick with emotion. You are a blessing from God. Catherine spent 2 hours in that cramped apartment drinking weak tea and listening to Rosa's stories about Lily's parents, about their dreams for their daughter. She saw the photos on the wall, the worn furniture, the space heater they used because the building's heating barely worked. She saw how much love existed in this small space despite all the hardship. When Saturday came, Lily put on her best clothes, a dress she'd worn to her parents' funeral, now a bit tight, and Catherine picked her up. The drive to Catherine's house took 30 minutes, moving from the rundown neighborhood into areas with bigger houses and greener lawns. Catherine's house was beautiful. Not mansion level, but comfortable and elegant. Large windows, a garden in the back, rooms filled with light and expensive furniture. But what caught Lily's attention were the photos everywhere. Photos of a young woman with Catherine's smile and bright, intelligent eyes. "That's Melissa," Catherine said softly. "She was 25 when she died. Leukemia. It happened fast. 6 months from diagnosis to the end." Lily studied the photos. Melissa in a graduation gown. Melissa on a beach laughing. Melissa in a hospital bed, thin but still smiling, giving a thumbs up to the camera. "She was beautiful," Lily said. "She was fierce," Catherine said. "She fought so hard. Even at the end, she was more worried about me than herself. She made me promise I wouldn't spend the rest of my life being sad. She wanted me to do something meaningful with the time I had left." They had dinner in Catherine's dining room. Real food, more than Lily had seen in months. Catherine asked about her classes, her interests, her dreams. Not in a condescending way, but like she genuinely cared about the answers. "I want to specialize in oncology," Lily admitted. "Cancer research. I want to help find cures so other families don't have to go through what you went through, what we went through. My parents were in so much pain at the end." Catherine's eyes glistened. Melissa wanted the same thing. After dinner, Catherine showed Lily the rest of the house. There was a room that had been Melissa's, still decorated with her posters and books. Catherine had left it exactly as it was. "I come in here sometimes and sit," Catherine admitted. "It makes me feel closer to her. I know it might seem morbid." "It's not," Lily said quickly. "I sleep with my mom's old sweater under my pillow. It still smells like her perfume, just a little bit. I'm terrified of the day when it doesn't anymore." They sat on Melissa's bed together, two women from completely different worlds, connected by loss and hope. "I have the paperwork," Catherine said. "My lawyer drafted everything. I'll pay for your grandmother's medical care, all of it. I'll pay for you to transfer to Riverside Prep. It's one of the best schools in the state. I'll cover your expenses so you don't have to work. When you graduate, I'll pay for college and medical school." Lily's hands shook as she took the papers. "What do you want in return?" "I want you to study hard, get into a good medical school, become the doctor you're meant to be, and someday when you're successful, help someone else the way I'm helping you. That's all? That's all?" Lily's voice cracked. "That's everything," Catherine corrected gently. "Melissa didn't get to live her dream, but maybe you can live it for both of you. Maybe that's how some dreams survive. They get passed on to people who can carry them forward." Lily read through the papers. It was all there, clearly written, legally binding. Medical care for Rosa, school tuition, living expenses. Catherine was even offering to pay for a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. "I'll sign," Lily said, "but I want to add something to the contract." "What's that?" "I want to have dinner with you once a week. Here, at your house. I want to hear more stories about Melissa. And I want to tell you about how school is going, about what I'm learning. Because this isn't just about money. You're giving me a future, and I want you to be part of it." Catherine's composure finally broke. Tears streamed down her face as she pulled Lily into a hug. "I'd like that very much." They signed the papers that night, sitting at Catherine's kitchen table. Lily's hand shook as she wrote her name, but her signature was clear and firm. This was real. This was happening. The following Monday, Lily started at Riverside Prep. The school was overwhelming at first. The other students had expensive clothes and cars, talked about vacations to Europe and ski trips, but Lily threw herself into her studies with fierce determination. Catherine kept her promises. Rosa saw the best cardiologist in the state. They moved to a clean, safe apartment with heat that actually worked. Lily had her own room for the first time in 2 years, but the most important thing was the dinners. Every Saturday night, Lily sat at Catherine's table and told her about AP chemistry and calculus, about the college prep courses and the volunteer work she was doing at the hospital. Catherine listened to every word like it was the most important thing she'd ever heard. And slowly, something neither of them had expected began to happen. They weren't just donor and recipient anymore. They were becoming family. But neither of them knew that the real miracle was still to come. Neither of them knew that their connection ran deeper than kindness or shared loss. The truth was hidden in old papers in a box in Catherine's attic, waiting to be discovered. And when it was, it would change everything they thought they knew about fate, about family, and about the mysterious ways that love finds its way home. 6 months had passed since that freezing December night. Lily was thriving at Riverside Prep. Her grades were perfect, and she'd even made a few friends. But more than that, she'd found something she hadn't had in 2 years, Hope. Grandma Rosa was doing better too. The medication the specialist prescribed was working. She had more energy, more color in her cheeks. The new apartment was warm and safe, and Rosa had even started tending to plants on the small balcony. The Saturday dinners with Catherine had become sacred. They talked about everything: school, medicine, life. Catherine told stories about Melissa, and Lily shared memories of her parents. They laughed together. Sometimes they cried together. They'd become each other's anchor. One Saturday in June, Catherine asked Lily for a favor. "I need to clean out the attic. I've been putting it off for years. Would you mind helping me? I could use the company, and you're young enough to climb up and down those stairs without your knees complaining." Lily laughed. "Of course. As long as you don't make me throw away anything important." The attic was full of boxes, decades worth of memories packed away in cardboard and dust. Old clothes, books, photo albums. Catherine had lived in this house for 30 years, and she'd never been good at throwing things away. They worked through the afternoon, deciding what to keep and what to donate. Lily found boxes of Melissa's old school projects and artwork. Catherine smiled through tears as they looked through them, remembering. She was terrible at art, Catherine said, holding up a lopsided clay bowl, but she tried so hard. She never gave up on anything. Near the back of the attic, behind a stack of boxes that hadn't been moved in years, Lily found an old filing cabinet. It was locked, but the key was taped to the back. "What's in here?" Lily asked. Catherine looked up from the box she was sorting. "I don't even remember. Legal papers, probably. Old tax documents. Go ahead and open it if you want." The cabinet was full of folders, neatly labeled and organized. Catherine had always been meticulous about paperwork. Lily started pulling them out, checking to see if anything was important or could be thrown away. Then she found a folder that made her freeze. It was labeled simply Baby 1990. Inside were papers Lily recognized. Adoption papers. She'd seen similar documents once when helping at a legal aid clinic through school. There was also a hospital birth certificate, yellowed with age, and several photographs of a newborn baby. Lily's heart started pounding. She knew she shouldn't look. This was private. But something made her pull out the birth certificate and read it. Baby girl. Born April 17, 1990. Mother, Catherine Elizabeth Bennett. Father, unknown. The baby had been given up for adoption 10 days after birth, April 17, 1990. That was her mother's birthday. Exactly. Lily's hands started shaking. She looked at the other papers. There were medical records. The baby had a distinctive birthmark on her left shoulder blade, shaped like a small crescent moon. The adoption had been private, arranged through an agency that had since closed. The photographs showed a tiny newborn with dark hair and closed eyes. On the back of one photo, Catherine had written, "My beautiful girl. I'm so sorry. I hope you have a wonderful life." Lily sat down hard on the dusty floor, the papers scattered around her. Her mind was racing. Her mother had been born on April 17, 1990. Her mother had a birthmark on her left shoulder blade, shaped like a crescent moon. Lily had seen it hundreds of times growing up. Her mother used to joke about it, calling it her moon mark. "Lily? Are you okay?" Catherine's voice came from across the attic. "Did you find something?" Lily couldn't speak. She just held up the folder with trembling hands. Catherine walked over, puzzled. Then she saw what Lily was holding, and all the color drained from her face. She sank down next to Lily, taking the folder with shaking hands. "I forgot these were up here," Catherine whispered. "I put them away so long ago. I couldn't bear to look at them." "You had a baby," Lily said, her voice strange and distant in her own ears. "In 1990? "Yes." Catherine's voice was thick with old pain. "I was 19, unmarried. My parents were furious. They said I'd ruin my life if I kept her. They arranged the adoption. I didn't have any choice. Or at least I thought I didn't. I've regretted it every single day since." "When was she born?" "April 17th. Catherine wiped her eyes. "I never even got to name her. They took her away so fast. All I have are these papers and photos. I've tried to find her, you know, after my parents died and I had the resources. But the agency closed down, the records were sealed. I hired investigators, but they found nothing. She's out there somewhere, and I'll never know if she's happy, if she's okay, if she even knows she was adopted." Lily felt like the attic was spinning. My mother, she said slowly, carefully. Her birthday was April 17th, 1990. Catherine looked at her sharply. What? And she had a birthmark on her left shoulder blade, shaped like a crescent moon. She called it her moon mark. The folder slipped from Catherine's hands. They stared at each other in the dusty attic, the afternoon sun streaming through the small window, dust motes dancing in the light. That's impossible, Catherine breathed. The odds of that? No, it can't be. But Lily was already pulling out her phone, scrolling through photos. She found one of her mother at the beach, turned away from the camera, the birthmark clearly visible on her shoulder. She showed it to Catherine. Catherine took the phone with shaking hands. She compared it to the description in the medical records. The shape was identical. The location was identical. When did your mother die? Catherine's voice was barely audible. 2 years ago. December. She and my dad, they were in a car accident. Did she ever mention being adopted? She knew. She told me once that her adoptive parents loved her very much, but they died when she was young. She ended up in foster care for a while before she met my dad. She didn't like to talk about it much. It made her sad. Catherine was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. What was her name? Grace. Grace Ann Martinez. Catherine stood up abruptly, stumbling toward a box in the corner. She dug through it frantically, pulling out an old envelope. When I gave her up, I wrote a letter. I gave it to the adoption agency to give to her parents, to give to her someday when she was old enough. I never knew if they received it. I never knew if she ever read it. She opened the envelope with shaking hands and pulled out a letter, yellowed and fragile. At the bottom, she'd signed her full name, Catherine Elizabeth Bennett, and dated it. April 27, 1990. I need to know, Catherine said, her voice urgent. Did your mother ever mention a letter? Did she ever say anything about her birth mother? Lily tried to remember. There had been a box of her mother's things, saved from the fire sale of their old house. Grandma Rosa kept it in the new apartment. I don't know, but we can look. Grandma Rosa saved all of Mom's important papers. They didn't even bother putting the attic back in order. They left everything where it was and drove straight to Rosa's apartment. Catherine drove too fast, her hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Neither of them spoke. What was there to say? Rosa was surprised to see them both, especially looking so shaken. What's wrong? What happened? Grandma, Lily said, trying to keep her voice steady. I need to see Mom's box. The one with her papers? Rosa's face grew concerned, but she nodded. She went to the closet and pulled out a battered cardboard box. Inside were Grace's birth certificate, her school records, photos, and a few pieces of jewelry. And at the bottom, a sealed envelope yellowed with age. Lily's hands shook as she pulled it out. On the front, in faded ink, it said, "To be given to Grace Ann on her 18th birthday." She never opened it, Rosa said softly. She got it right before her adoptive mother died. She was so angry then, so hurt by everything that had happened. She put it away and said she never wanted to see it. I tried to talk to her about it, but she wouldn't. After she died, I kept it with her things. I thought maybe someday you'd want it. Catherine reached out a trembling hand. May I? Rosa looked confused but nodded. Catherine took the envelope. Her handwriting was on the front, younger but unmistakable. She opened it carefully and pulled out the letter. It was the same letter, word for word, as the copy she'd kept. My dearest daughter, Catherine read aloud, her voice breaking. I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I need you to know that I loved you from the moment I knew you existed. Giving you up is the hardest thing I'll ever do. I'm 19, unmarried, and my family says I can't keep you. I don't have a choice. But please know that you were wanted. You were loved. You are loved. I hope your new family gives you everything I couldn't. I hope you have a beautiful life full of joy and love and all the opportunities I couldn't provide. You'll always be in my heart. Your birth mother, Catherine. The room was silent except for Catherine's quiet sobs. Rosa sat down heavily, her hand over her mouth. Grace was your daughter, Rosa whispered, all this time. When you found Lily on the street. When you saved her. You were saving your own granddaughter. We don't know for sure, Catherine said, but her voice was desperate with hope. We need proof. DNA testing. I need to know. I'll do it, Lily said immediately. We can go tomorrow. First thing. That night none of them slept. Catherine sat in her car outside the apartment building until 3 in the morning, unable to drive home. Rosa made tea that went cold in the cups. Lily lay awake on her bed staring at the ceiling, trying to process what might be true, If it was real, then the woman who'd saved her life wasn't just a generous stranger. She was family. She was her grandmother, her mother's mother. The woman Grace had never gotten to meet. And if it was true, then that night 6 months ago wasn't just luck or coincidence. It was something else entirely. Something that felt like fate or miracles or whatever you wanted to call it, when the universe aligned in ways that seemed impossible. The next morning, they met at a clinic that did DNA testing. The nurse took samples from both Catherine and Lily. She explained that results would take 3 to 5 business days. Though in cases like this, the nurse said, where you're testing for a grandparent-grandchild relationship, the results might not be 100% conclusive. The genetic markers can sometimes be ambiguous. How long before we know something? Catherine asked. I'll put a rush on it. You should hear by Wednesday at the latest, 3 days. They had to wait 3 days to know if their lives had just completely changed. Catherine went home to her empty house. Lily went to school but couldn't concentrate on anything. Rosa prayed, her rosary beads moving constantly through her fingers. Wednesday afternoon, Catherine's phone rang. She answered it so fast she nearly dropped it. Ms. Bennett, this is Dr. Reynolds from the testing facility. I have your results. Catherine's heart stopped. And? The test shows a 99.8% probability of a grandparent-grandchild relationship. For all practical purposes, that's a match. Lily is your biological granddaughter. Catherine sat down slowly, her legs giving out. You're sure? I'm sure. Congratulations, Ms. Bennett, you found your family. Catherine called Lily immediately. Lily answered on the first ring, her voice breathless. Did they call you? Yes, Catherine said and started crying. Yes, they called. Lily, it's true. It's all true. You're Grace's daughter. You're my granddaughter. On the other end of the line, Lily was crying too. I can't believe it. All this time, I know, Catherine said. I know. That night, they all gathered at Catherine's house. Catherine, Lily, and Rosa. They sat in the living room, looking at photos of Grace, comparing her features to Catherine's and Melissa's. The resemblance was there, clear as day once you knew to look for it. She has your smile, Rosa said, pointing to a photo of young Catherine. Grace had that same smile. And Lily does too. They stayed up late into the night piecing together the story. Catherine's daughter, given up for adoption, had grown up to have a daughter of her own. And through an impossible series of events, that granddaughter had collapsed on a sidewalk, right where Catherine would find her. Do you think she knows? Lily asked quietly. My mom. Do you think she can see this somehow? Catherine pulled Lily close. I'd like to think so. I'd like to think Grace knows that her daughter is safe now, that she's with family, that everything's going to be okay. And for the first time in 2 years, Lily believed it. Everything was going to be okay. More than okay. She'd lost her parents, but she'd gained a grandmother she never knew existed. The miracle that had started with a rescue on a cold December night was bigger than any of them had imagined. The DNA results sat on Catherine's kitchen table like a bridge between two worlds. Catherine picked up the papers for the 100th time, reading the words that had changed everything. 99.8% probability of a grandparent-grandchild relationship. Her daughter Grace had been real. Had lived. Had grown up and fallen in love and had a child of her own. And now that child, her granddaughter, was sitting across from her. Drinking coffee and doing homework like this was just another Saturday morning. Except it wasn't. Nothing would ever be just another anything anymore. You're staring at me again, Lily said, not looking up from her calculus textbook. But she was smiling. Sorry. Catherine set the papers down. I'm still getting used to it. You have her nose, you know. Grace's nose. I can see it in the baby photos. They'd spent the past week going through everything. Catherine had pulled out every document, every photo, every scrap of paper related to Grace's birth and adoption. Lily had brought over all of her mother's belongings from Rosa's apartment. They'd laid it all out, piecing together a life story that spanned 35 years. Grace's adoptive parents had been good people according to the records. They'd loved her, given her opportunities, but they'd died in a house fire when Grace was 13. She'd spent her teenage years bouncing between foster homes, never quite finding her place. She'd aged out of the system at 18, worked her way through community college, and met Lily's father at a diner where they both worked. She never talked about her childhood much, Lily said. I think it hurt too much. She always said she didn't need to look back because she had us to look forward to. Catherine's eyes filled with tears again. She'd been crying a lot lately. I wish I'd known. I looked for her, you know. After my parents died and I had the money and freedom to search, I hired investigators. But the adoption agency had closed, and the records were sealed. I found dead end after dead end. She was using Dad's last name by then, Martinez. You were probably looking for her adoption name. Anne. Her adoptive parents named her Grace Ann Morrison. I found a death certificate for a Grace Morrison who died at age 13 in that fire. And I thought... Catherine's voice broke. I thought my daughter was dead. I stopped searching. The cruelty of near misses. If Catherine had kept looking just a little longer. If Grace had tried to find her birth mother. If any of 1,000 small things had been different, they might have found each other years ago. Grace might have known her birth mother, might have met Melissa, her half-sister, but that wasn't what happened. Instead, Grace had lived and died never knowing where she came from, and Catherine had spent 30 years grieving a daughter she'd given up, then 5 more years grieving a daughter she'd thought was dead. I keep thinking about that night, Lily said quietly, the night I collapsed. What were the odds? That you'd be driving home at exactly that moment on exactly that street? That you'd see me and stop? Catherine had thought about it too. She'd been driving home from a charity dinner she hadn't wanted to attend. She'd taken a different route than usual because of construction. If any of those small choices had been different, she would have driven right past the street where Lily had collapsed. My daughter Melissa used to say that sometimes the universe has a plan, Catherine said. She believed in things like that, fate, destiny. I never did. I thought life was just random chance. But now you're not so sure, Lily finished. Now I'm not so sure, Catherine agreed. The legal situation was complicated. Catherine's lawyer had explained it all in careful detail. Catherine was already Lily's legal guardian and benefactor, but now they needed to update all the paperwork to reflect their actual relationship. There were inheritance issues, custody arrangements, a dozen legal hoops to jump through, but none of that mattered as much as what it meant. Lily wasn't just someone Catherine was helping anymore. She was family, real biological family, the only family Catherine had left. Rosa had taken the news with quiet grace. She'd hugged Catherine tight and said, I knew there was a reason God brought you together. This family has been through so much pain. It's time for some joy. The 3 of them had dinner together that night at Catherine's house. 3 generations of women connected by blood and love in an impossible miracle. Tell me about Melissa, Lily said. They were sitting in the living room after dinner. I want to know everything. She was my aunt. I had an aunt and I never got to meet her. Catherine pulled out photo albums. She'd been through them a million times alone, but sharing them with Lily was different. She told stories about Melissa's childhood, how she'd been obsessed with dinosaurs at age 6, how she'd won the science fair 3 years in a row, how she'd cried at sad movies and laughed too loud at jokes and had dreamed of changing the world. She sounds like Mom, Lily said, looking at a photo of teenage Melissa in her soccer uniform. Mom was like that too, always wanting to help people. That's why she became a nurse. Catherine felt a pang in her chest. Grace was a nurse? Yeah, she worked in the ER. She loved it. She said she liked being there for people on their worst days, helping them get through it. So both of her daughters had ended up in medicine, trying to heal people. Catherine didn't know if that was genetics or coincidence or just the way kind hearts naturally gravitated toward helping others, but it felt significant. I wish they'd known each other, Lily said softly. Mom and Melissa, they would have liked each other. They would have loved each other, Catherine corrected. They were sisters. The reality of all that had been lost settled over them. Grace and Melissa had both died young, never knowing they were sisters. Catherine had spent decades apart from her biological daughter. So many years wasted, so many missed opportunities. But Lily was here, alive and healthy and full of promise, and maybe that had to be enough. Over the following weeks, they settled into a new normal. Lily still went to school, still worked hard on her studies, but now when she came to Catherine's house for Saturday dinner, it wasn't an obligation or an arrangement. It was a granddaughter visiting her grandmother. Catherine introduced Lily to extended family, cousins and aunts and uncles who'd known about the baby Catherine gave up but had never thought they'd meet her descendants. Everyone embraced Lily warmly, welcoming her into the family with open arms. Lily introduced Catherine to her friends from school. "This is my grandmother," she'd say with quiet pride. Not her guardian or her benefactor, her grandmother. The hardest part was explaining it to people who asked, "How do you tell someone that you collapsed on the street, and the woman who saved you turned out to be your biological grandmother?" It sounded like something from a movie, too impossible to be real. But it was real. The DNA test proved it. The birthmark proved it. The dates and records proved it. Against astronomical odds, they had found each other. One night, Lily asked the question that had been bothering her. "Do you think Mom would be okay with this? With me being happy when she's gone?" They were in Catherine's kitchen making cookies. It was something Melissa used to love doing, and Catherine had suggested it almost without thinking. Now they stood side by side measuring flour and sugar, and Lily's question hung in the air. "Your mother loved you more than anything," Catherine said carefully. "From everything you've told me about her, all she ever wanted was for you to be happy and safe. I think she'd be thrilled to know you found family, that you're not alone. But she never got to find you. She died without knowing where she came from." "I know." Catherine's voice was thick. "That's something I'll have to live with. But Lily, we can't change the past. All we can do is honor it by living well now. Grace would want that. She'd want you to be happy." Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving a streak of flour on her cheek. "I wish you could have known her. Really known her, not just through stories and photos. So do I, but I know her through you. Every time you smile or work hard on your homework or talk about wanting to help people, that's Grace living on. That's my daughter's legacy." They finished making the cookies in comfortable silence. When they were done, they packed half of them up for Lily to take to Rosa. "Grandma Rosa's been quiet lately," Lily said. "I think she's worried." "About what?" "About you replacing her. About me not needing her anymore now that I have you." Catherine set down the cookie tin. "That's ridiculous. Rosa raised you. She kept you and your mother together when everything fell apart. She's your family just as much as I am. I know that. But she doesn't. She won't say it, but I can tell." The next day, Catherine drove to Rosa's apartment. The older woman answered the door with surprise. "Catherine, is everything okay? Is Lily all right?" "Everything's fine. I wanted to talk to you." "May I come in?" They sat at Rosa's small kitchen table with tea that Rosa insisted on making, despite Catherine's protests. Catherine got straight to the point. "Lily thinks you're worried about being replaced. I need you to know that could never happen." Rosa's hands trembled slightly on her teacup. "She's your granddaughter. Your blood. You can give her everything I never could. A good home, education, opportunities. You gave her love," Catherine interrupted. "You gave her a home when she had nothing. You kept her going when she wanted to give up. You're her grandmother just as much as I am. DNA doesn't change that. But, Rosa, I'm asking you to share her with me, not give her up. I want us to be a family. All three of us. You, me, and Lily, is that okay with you?" Rosa's eyes filled with tears. She reached across the table and took Catherine's hand. "You're a good woman, Catherine. Grace would have been proud to know you, and she'd be grateful to you for raising her daughter with so much love." They talked for over an hour, two grandmothers figuring out how to share a granddaughter, how to blend their different worlds into something that worked for all of them. When Catherine left, she felt like something important had been settled. That Saturday, they changed the routine. Instead of just Lily coming to Catherine's house, Catherine picked up both Lily and Rosa. They had dinner together, 3 generations linked by love and loss and impossible luck. Rosa told stories about Lily's childhood that made Catherine laugh. Catherine shared memories of Melissa that made Rosa smile. Lily sat between them, listening, her heart full. This was her family now. Not just blood relatives or legal guardians, but real family. People who loved her unconditionally, who wanted the best for her, who would be there no matter what. As the evening wound down and Catherine drove Rosa and Lily home, Lily thought about her mother and father, about how much loss they'd all experienced, but also about how that loss had led them to find each other. She couldn't call what happened on that freezing December night lucky. Too much pain, too much suffering had led to that moment. But she could call it a miracle, a second chance, a way for broken pieces to come together into something whole again. Her mother never got to know her birth family, but Lily would know them for her. She'd carry forward the love of all the people who'd shaped her. Her parents who'd died too young, Her grandmother Rosa, who'd kept her alive, and now Catherine. The grandmother she'd found in the most impossible way. The miracle wasn't finished yet. There was still more story to write, more life to live. But for the first time since her parents died, Lily felt like everything might actually be okay. More than okay. She felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. 3 years had passed since that cold December night when everything changed. Lily stood backstage at her high school graduation, adjusting her cap and smoothing down her valedictorian medal. Through the curtain, she could see the audience filling the auditorium. Her eyes found Catherine and Rosa sitting together in the third row, already looking emotional. She smiled. Her family. Against all odds, she had a family. The past 3 years had been the best of her life. She'd thrown herself into her studies at Riverside Prep, determined to make the most of the opportunity she'd been given. Perfect grades. Perfect attendance. Captain of the debate team. Volunteer coordinator at the hospital. She'd done everything she could to honor the second chance she'd received. But more than academics, she'd found something she'd lost when her parents died. She'd found home. Catherine's house had become her sanctuary. She spent weekends there, studying at the big kitchen table while Catherine worked on her business plans nearby. They cooked together, watched movies together, talked about everything and nothing. Catherine came to every school event, cheering louder than anyone else at Lily's debate competitions. Rosa was there too, always. Every Sunday dinner included all 3 of them. Rosa had moved into a guest house on Catherine's property after her health improved enough. She'd resisted at first, but Catherine had insisted, and eventually Rosa had agreed. Now she spent her days tending the garden Catherine had helped her plant, growing vegetables and flowers that reminded her of her childhood in Mexico. The 3 of them had become a unit. Different backgrounds, different ages, different experiences, but bound together by love and the miracle that had brought them into each other's lives. 5 minutes, a teacher called out backstage. Lily took a deep breath and pulled out her speech. She'd rewritten it a dozen times trying to find the right words. How do you sum up everything that had happened? How do you explain a miracle to people who weren't there to witness it? The ceremony began. Lily sat with the other students, barely hearing the speeches and announcements. Her heart was pounding. When they called her name to give the valedictorian speech, she stood on shaking legs and walked to the podium. The auditorium went quiet. Hundreds of faces looked up at her expectantly. She found Catherine and Rosa in the crowd, both of them smiling through tears. 3 years ago, Lily began, her voice steady despite her nerves. I collapsed on a sidewalk in the middle of winter. I was exhausted, starving, and alone. I was 17 years old and I was giving up. I didn't think I could keep going anymore. The audience was silent, listening. A stranger stopped her car and saved my life. She didn't have to. It was freezing cold late at night. Most people would have driven past. But she didn't. She stayed with me until help came. And then she did something even more incredible. She gave me a future. Lily paused, looking at Catherine. That woman is here today. She's my grandmother. But when she saved me that night, she didn't know that. Neither of us knew. We found out later through a series of impossible coincidences that we were family. That my mother had been the daughter she'd given up for adoption 35 years earlier. That the random rescue on a freezing night was actually a grandmother finding her lost granddaughter. A murmur ran through the crowd. The story had been in the local news, but many people still found it hard to believe.